They didn't call it risky. They didn't call it bold. They called it brilliant. On paper, everything aligned perfectly. Timelines were clean. Arrows moved with mathematical certainty. Every variable seemed accounted for. The plan promised speed. Speed would replace caution. Speed would silence resistance. Speed would prevent doubt. And for a moment, everyone in the room believed it. Because brilliance has a dangerous effect. It discourages questions. No one wants to be the person who slows down a perfect idea. No one wants to be remembered as the one who doubted success. Previous victories became evidence. Confidence turned into assumption. Assumption hardened into certainty. The plan didn't just look good, it felt inevitable. And that was the problem. Because once a plan is labeled genius, it stops being tested against reality. It stops being challenged. It stops evolving. What began as strategy quietly transformed into belief. Not belief in flexibility, not belief in adaptation, but belief that reality would behave as expected. At that moment, before a single order was executed, before a single unit moved, the plan had already begun to fail. Not because it was complex, not because it was ambitious, but because everyone agreed it could not be wrong.
The map was precise. Clean lines, clear directions, distances measured to the last kilometer. Reality was not. The terrain did not match the assumptions. The timelines stretched. The resistance appeared where none was expected. What looked simple from above became complicated on the ground. Reports began to arrive, not dramatic, not alarming, just inconvenient. Small delays, unexpected friction, minor complications. Nothing serious, at least not serious enough to stop the plan. The problem was not lack of information. The problem was selective attention. Data that supported the plan was amplified. Data that challenged it was explained away. Weather was temporary. Logistics were adjustable. Communication issues were being resolved. Reality was treated as a technical glitch, not a warning. The plan demanded obedience. Reality demanded adaptation. Only one of them was ignored. And so, instead of changing the strategy, they tried to force the world to behave according to the map. That gap between what was expected and what actually existed grew wider with every hour. Not violently, not suddenly, quietly.
No order forbade questions. No document demanded silence. And yet, silence filled the room. Officers saw the discrepancies. Commanders noticed the delays. Analysts recognized the patterns. But no one wanted to be first. Because speaking up did not mean offering a solution. It meant challenging certainty. It meant questioning authority. It meant standing alone. In that room, hierarchy mattered more than accuracy. Tone mattered more than truth. Confidence mattered more than correctness. So concerns were softened. Warnings were rephrased. Facts were wrapped in careful language. What if became unlikely. Problem became complication. Failure became delay. Not because they were lying, but because they were afraid of being right. Each level waited for the level above to acknowledge reality. No one wanted responsibility for changing the plan. And so the plan remained untouched, protected not by logic, but by consensus.
That silence did not preserve order. It destroyed it. Because when everyone waits for someone else to speak, the truth arrives too late.
The first hours were spent waiting. Waiting for progress. Waiting for confirmation. Waiting for the plan to prove itself. Instead, it resisted. Timelines slipped. Units paused where they were meant to advance. Messages arrived late, or not at all. Still, the plan remained intact on paper. After 24 hours, there was no breakthrough, but there was also no admission of failure. So adjustments were made, not to the strategy, but to the reports. Success was projected forward. Problems were pushed aside. Reality was postponed. By 48 hours, the situation no longer matched any original assumptions. Orders were being executed for conditions that no longer existed. Resources were moved based on positions that had already changed. The plan was no longer leading events. It was chasing them. At 72 hours, something unspoken settled in. The questions stopped. The confidence disappeared. Only momentum remained. Not momentum toward victory, but momentum toward consequences. The plan had not collapsed in a single moment. It had eroded, hour by hour, until nothing solid remained. There was no meeting where the plan was officially declared dead. No statement, no order, no admission. The plan simply continued, not because it worked, but because stopping it would require responsibility. So it was renamed, adjusted, updated, Phase 2. In reality, nothing had changed. Orders were still issued based on assumptions that no longer existed. Resources were committed to objectives that no longer mattered. Failure was not denied, it was diluted. Each layer of command passed the weight downward. Each report softened the truth just enough to avoid consequences. And so the cost grew, not in hours, but in momentum. Because the longer a failed plan survives, the more damage it does. Not to the battlefield, but to decision-making itself. By the time reality could no longer be ignored, the opportunity to adapt was gone. What remained was not strategy, but habit. Not leadership, but inertia. This is how wars are truly lost. Not in a single defeat, not in a dramatic collapse, but in the quiet refusal to say the simplest sentence in command: "This plan has failed."